Okay, well, I think we'll get going if that's all right, Em. It's that sort of time.
Let's do it.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Phil Orr. I'm the co-CEO of 25/8, and which includes as part of that family, the family of brands marketing entourage. And I'm going to be your host for this afternoon/evening. Let me begin by respectfully acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land, the Bunurong, Boon Wurrung and the Wurundjeri Woi Wurrung peoples of the Eastern Kulin Nation, and pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging. My own love of Melbourne actually started in 2008 when I moved here originally for a work opportunity and to start a new adventure. And since then, I've seen firsthand the growth of Melbourne in terms of its population, its infrastructure, its culture, and the opportunities for all. But obviously, 2020 changed so much, and now it's your chance to help with the recovery and resilience of our wonderful city. I'm especially excited and honoured to host this evening's event, as this is the third year that I've been involved in the competition. During this time, I've had the opportunity to meet with so many inspiring people who are focused on having a positive impact, not just in Melbourne, but also internationally. So it's great to have everybody here, because I think the connections and the network that comes from an event like this is just as important about who actually wins at the end of it. So let's warm everybody up by asking everyone to say hi in the chat and to introduce yourself. If you haven't used Zoom chat before, you can find it in the bottom menu. Throughout all of the event, you can add any comments in the chat, and also please free to ask any questions. We're going to have some speakers speaking. There's a City of Melbourne team here. We want to make it as interactive as possible for everybody that's involved. There'll be members of 25/8 and the City of Melbourne team available in the chat. There's Emma Van Smale from 25/8 alongside Emma Forster and Megan Cockcroft from the City of Melbourne. So give us a wave, team. Hopefully you can spot them. Also, please remember to keep yourselves on mute to ensure the quality of the experience for others. We will mute those that have accidentally forgotten to do so. And because this is a friendly, inclusive community event, we have a zero tolerance policy to ensure it remains a safe place for all. There is also live closed captions that you'll probably can see running along the bottom. If you want that on to help you, that's absolutely fine. However, you can actually switch it off by along the bottom of the Zoom menu. There's something that's called live transcript. And there's a button there, and you're able to button it and actually start it or stop it. So, but it's there for your use if you want to use it. So before we actually really get stuck into this, we thought that we might actually start with a quick poll. If Emma can start that, we just want to try and understand about who's in the audience and what's bringing you to the event tonight. So here are your options. I'm looking to enter the competition. I'm interested community member. I work in a relevant field. I want to learn more about innovation, or I don't know, I just love Melbourne, which is also a perfectly acceptable answer. So we'll just give it a bit of time for that to actually come through. We'll just have a look at the chat. We've got lots of different people in there from the looks of it, which is fantastic. How are we going, Em? I think we're almost getting there. Just give it a little bit longer. Looks like it's a pretty tight race. Okay, so 36% of you are looking to enter the competition, which is pretty exciting. And then there's people who work in a relevant field, and people who just want to learn more about innovation. So that's fantastic. So it's really exciting that we've got lots of people who are looking to enter. So hopefully we'll get some good interaction and help give you some ideas to enhance your own ideas about what you would like to do. I'll just swap sides. So just as a bit of background, so the competition is an annual event to solve a city issue by tapping into the creativity and expertise of the community. This year, we're focusing on city reactivation and recovery. So we're calling on innovators, entrepreneurs, students, the community members, everybody to submit your ideas and help solve the following challenge. This is the overarching problem statement for this year. How might we bring vibrancy back into the city post-COVID-19 by reimagining the way we live, connect, work and play in our city while enhancing the social, cultural, environmental and economic vitality of Melbourne? To build on this challenge more, the City of Melbourne have started to believe that there's like 4 opportunity areas that we can explore further. So I'll just talk you through these. The first one is about public and/or private spaces and places. So how might we rethink the use and activate spaces and places through creative, innovative and technology-enabled solutions? Second one is around future ways of working and connecting. How might we reimagine the way we work, study, connect and collaborate through creative, innovative and technology-enabled solutions? Our third one is about specific sector support. For example, retail, hospitality, the arts, international education, tourism, music and culture. How might we support hard-hitting industry sectors to recover and adapt into the future? And last but not least is new economies and future industries. So how might we support the diversification of our city through new economies and future industries? What we thought, just while we've got that up, is to ask you just another quick poll about which of the 4 opportunity areas do you see the greatest potential for innovative responses. So if we'll just run that poll, where do you think the best potential is for actually responses? As I say, it's a wonderfully broad problem statement because we want to do everything we can to actually help the city. So by again, like building it around these 4 areas gives us a really good opportunity to have a greater understanding of what are the ideas in your heads or what are the specific areas that you feel that you can support and solve. So as always, they're counting up, it's getting closer. I can see the countdown coming on. There's just a few more of you who need to vote. And still clicking, just a few little bit left. And it's a pretty close thing looking at it. That's it, if you want to share the results. So what do we have as the winner? Well, that's interesting. So they're all pretty close really, apart the first one about public or private spaces is down at 15%, but we've got specific sector support for retail, hospitality, etc. as number 1, and then in joint second place, future ways of working and connecting and new economies and future industries. So I'm just going to write those down because that'll be a good thing to actually track as we move forward into the panel discussions. Okay, that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, so let's talk about what we're going to go through for the rest of today. So we're really excited about today's event, and thanks to all of you for joining. This is just over until about 5:30, so now it's about an hour and a quarter. We're going to be here shortly from Councillor David Griffiths. We're going to hear from last year's winners. They're going to have some speakers who are going to help to inspire you around your ideas. I'm also going to hear from a couple of our international partners. And then we're going to have a panel discussion with our speakers, which gives you a chance to ask any questions and understand more about the Open Innovation Competition. And Emma and Megan from the team will be able to answer any of your questions. So we should wrap this all up perfectly if the universe allows us and technology stays on our side. On that note, the next thing I wanted to do was to be able to help you understand more about the Open Innovation Competition. I've got a short video that I want to play you. So I'm just going to try and get that going now. Bear with me 1 second. See if we can get this to work. Just bear with me a second. I just need to make sure I've got the right settings. More share sound. Okay, let's see if this works.
this year's Open Innovation Competition for a chance to share in $30,000. This year, we're inviting participants to come up with solutions to help bring vibrancy back into the city post-COVID-19. We're encouraging the use of data and emerging technology to address common urban challenges. To help, you can explore the City of Melbourne's Open Data Platform, which has over 200 datasets to choose from. We want to help innovators and entrepreneurs start, grow, and go global. So we've partnered with international organisations so you can test your solutions on a global scale. Top participants will gain access to cash prizes, accelerator programs, mentoring and international opportunities in Indonesia and Vietnam. Applications are now open. Submit your idea to be part of shaping the future of Melbourne. For more information, head to participate.melbourne.vic.gov.au/open-innovation.
Okay, so I hope that that's started to help get everybody excited about what can happen in the coming weeks. We want to help as many people as possible this year pitch their ideas and have the opportunity to win a share in $30,000. To welcome everybody, I would like to invite Councillor Griffiths to say a few words. Councillor, are you there?
I am. Thank you, Phil, and thank you to everyone who's come along this afternoon virtually. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay, and if not, someone will give me a big wave. What you see behind me isn't an elaborate and expensive City of Melbourne moving wallpaper for Zoom. I'm actually sitting down in Royal Park at the moment, and I'll explain a little bit more in a minute about why I'm doing that, and I guess about the nature of innovation from Council's point of view. Phil, I'm grateful that you acknowledged the traditional owners of the land, and I also would like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. It's very important that we not just say those words. The city and myself personally are committed to those words being meaningful, and as I guess the latest example of that from the city's point of view would be the launch of the Yurrumboi Festival. And for those people who don't know, the Yurrumboi Festival is an arts festival around Indigenous and First Nations culture. It's an amazing curation of a celebration of the fact that we live on the lands of people who have had the longest living culture in the world, over 60,000 years. And I really would encourage people, as part of their experience of being in and around Melbourne and Victoria, to jump on the Yurrumboi website after this and have a look at the various opportunities that there are to participate and go along and learn as part of that. Yurrumboi means tomorrow, and I think that is a message that ties in very, very nicely with what it is that we're here today to speak about, which of course is future ideas and future forward thinking. Well, so here I am sitting in Royal Park on the first anniversary, I think, to the day of when the lockdown first started in Melbourne last year. And I'm sure, like all of you, you wouldn't have imagined 365 days ago that this is what you'd be doing today. I can assure you that that wasn't what I was thinking about at the time. I was running a pub in the city, and you know, in the lead up to this, you know, it was business as usual, doing all the kinds of things that you would expect somebody to be doing if they were running a pub in a normal way. And here I sit today in Royal Park while my son is having his tennis lessons, speaking to you about innovation and the possibilities that technology offers. This time last year, I'd never heard of a Zoom, let alone thought that I'd be delivering a speech from the middle of a park by one, and that the technology would actually work and work successfully. But even more than that, my journey, and thank you, Sasha, for finding that that link. That's fantastic and very quick and wonderful. Jump onto that one. So my story during lockdown was, obviously I wasn't able to run the bricks and mortar work of the pub, and so we went online, and even more than just selling beer online, we started to record a weekly Zoom session where we would speak to a brewer, and we would deliver to our customers ahead of that session the beer that the brewer was going to talk about. And then we've also ended up putting those out as podcast versions for people who couldn't join us live and in the flesh, such as it is on Zoom. When we first started that was really just a way of catching up with some mates for an hour or two on a Thursday night. And we were really just sort of dealing with a few of the local breweries like Bonehead nearby in Kensington in the city of Melbourne. Get a little plug in for them while I'm doing my plugs for the night. Over time, that's grown. And so we've been lucky enough to sort of work with huge breweries like Sierra Nevada in California and Weinstefana live from Munich. And these are possibilities that I would never have dreamt of, even in the months that were sort of leading up to them. And that's why I was very interested to see how people were responding in the poll that we've just had a look at there, and see such a wide range of responses that people come up with about what sectors they think there's the most opportunities in. From a self-interested point of view, I'm fascinated to see what comes out over the next 6 weeks or so in terms of areas like hospitality and reinvigorating that. But I'm also really conscious that, and I voted, in fact, for the final option on that poll, which was really about new ideas, new technologies, and new discussions, things that people the likes of me haven't even considered yet. And that's what's going to be so fundamentally important for the city and all of us who want to see it come back and thrive as strongly as possible. It's really about identifying those new ideas and finding a way to make them move into reality, out of people's heads and into a reality situation. So my huge thanks to everyone who's brought this together, from the City of Melbourne's team, but also from the wide range of mentors who are here tonight, from the other partner groups that have come to be part of it, and for everyone who's keen to be part of the system, whether it's for a returning visit, and saw at the beginning there that there are many returning people, or for the very first time. It's wonderful to know that there's this many people who are interested and packed full of ideas to make the City of Melbourne an even better place. You'll see me, I'll stay online for a little bit. I'm really interested to hear the conversations. I'll mute myself so that you don't have to listen to the sounds of tennis balls being hit back and forth, or frogs, or lorikeets, or city trams. But once again, a big thank you to everyone who's been part of it, and I can't wait to see what emerges in a few weeks' time.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, David. And I think we're all quite envious from that as a backdrop to any Zoom call. You win by a mile. So it's really great. And thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it. Okay, so as we move along, the next thing we wanted to do was actually get you to just hear from last year's winner and the impact of winning the Open Innovation Competition. So we've got Haida and Matteo from Charity Bay, and we've just got a short video to play you so they can explain what the impact has been for them. So fingers crossed you can see this video, and it's at the beginning. I'll play it now.
Hi, I'm Haida and this is Matteo. We are the founders of Charity Bay. We won the Open Innovation Competition of 2020 that was hosted by the City of Melbourne. An incredible opportunity that has allowed us to come and grow to the organization that we've become today. Charity Bay is an online marketplace that repurposes household items and prevents them from reaching landfill, while also diverting much needed funds and proceeds to registered charities here in Australia.
We heard about the Open Innovation Competition thanks to their email marketing. And then after analyzing, we realized that our mission was quite aligned with the competitions, since it was about circular economy as well as social equity. We received also the International Award. That gave us the opportunity to have a virtual exchange with the city of Bandung in Indonesia. Over there we learned a lot of things, but most importantly, we realized that each country has its own magic and that we needed to learn from it and to be prepared even before continuing with our international expansion.
That was not all. We were also sponsored by the Melbourne Accelerator Program into the Velocity Stream, which is an accelerator-like program that allowed us to really validate our concept, get the traction that we need, and take us into the next phase of our organization in preparation for our growth. We were also awarded a co-working space sponsored by 11 Space here on Collins Street in the heart of Melbourne CBD. We're actually shooting this video from here. So we got the knowledge and the know-how, and we got the working space that we needed. But the most important prize, by winning with the City of Melbourne, and even just by participating in the event, we got the trust and the integrity that we needed to grow our campaigns with our charity partners, with our donors, and with our buyers. So if your mission aligns with this year's Open Innovation Competition, we could not recommend this anymore, because it is truly a game changer and it is taking us up into the open market.
Yeah, and why not? Visit us on charitybay.org and then join our movement to donate, buy, and smile. Thank you.
Okay, well, they are genuinely two of the nicest people you could meet. Talk about being purpose-driven, and just building what they said about the international connections, the knowledge and the know-how, co-working spaces, but more importantly, the trust and integrity of their charity partners. So hopefully for everybody who gets this opportunity, we can do everything possible to help people grow their business as well. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to hear from some pretty amazing speakers. So let me just go back to my slides. Hopefully you can see that okay. So we have got 4 fantastic speakers to try and help build your knowledge and provide some inspiration in terms of this challenge and how you might go across to how you might go to solve it. So I would first of all like to introduce our first of our speakers, which is Bree Trevena, who is the research leader for Australia at Arup Foresight. So thank you, Bree. If I stop sharing, then hopefully you will be able to share and be able to go through your slides.
Thank you, Phil. Can someone just give me a wave? Can you see my screen there?
Yeah, all good.
Beautiful, great. So for the next 5 minutes or so, I'm going to focus on some trends and provocations around ideas of work, specifically what we might consider to be office work. The reduction of office workers flowing in and out of our city each day has had a really enormous impact on the vibrancy of Melbourne's social, cultural life and economic life, as with so many other cities. But in sharing these ideas to spark some thinking, it's really worth remembering that those things people want from their office as a place are generally the same things that we want from most environments. We want places that support connection, that support individual and collective comfort, well-being, learning, creativity, and really importantly, socialization. So as dining tables have been turned into desks and bedrooms into breakout spaces, many of us have found some opportunity in this new working environment. For some, it's been greater flexibility, perhaps a return to the local. However, this also sits alongside some challenges around work from home, including impacts on physical and mental health, particularly for younger people and people who are more isolated, as well on progress around diversity, inclusion, and progression in the workplace. So we're now at this really interesting moment of reflection where we're considering how we can engage with technology in a more fluid way of working while renewing our relationship with the office and with its urban context. So pandemics generally have a tendency to generate invention, interruption, and acceleration. And in the acceleration column, health and wellness, which has for the past few years played a much greater role in building design and the design of public places, has been amplified from creating more playful, interactive environments to a renewed focus on hygienic spaces. And this makes sense, right? Our bodies and minds are shaped by the places we inhabit, from home to work and everywhere in between. Some of the effects are physical. For example, research tells us that more walkable environments, both within and around office spaces, boost people's happiness and life expectancy, as well as productivity and creativity. And so it's no real surprise that walking meetings have taken off globally in a big way during pandemic. As of opportunities to reimagine and re-energize our cities through greening, from Paris planning to turn the Champs-Élysées into a garden prioritizing local community, including wildlife, to Councillor Griffiths recently speaking to us from Royal Park. And the image that you can see here is actually from the Arup Melbourne office, which is where I work. And it's been a key reason I was interested in going back. It's a park that's open to the public while giving workers a space and a place to meet outdoors and a place to take respite. Picking up on some of those really important cognitive benefits benefits of work environments and urban environments that are green, we've all felt that ability of nature to quite literally calm the mind and reduce stress. And the importance of access to quality green space has become very clear to most of us during pandemic. So if we understand healthy buildings and urban spaces that support physical and mental health as valuable in incentivizing people back to the city, something to think about today is how can workplaces and surroundings be adapted to positively impact our comfort and our well-being. Now, when people share a space, they instinctively learn from one another and establish connections. I'm sure that most of us here today have benefited from that in the past and are looking forward to doing so in the future. Anthony Townsend, who's an urbanist in residence at Cornell Tech, recently flagged a concern that work from home in the long term might lead to a lack of causal knowledge exchange that could in turn create an innovation deficit. These kinds of informal learning experiences really positively correlated with greater flexibility, employability, adaptability, and resolution of work-related problems. And really importantly, it also helps us to support generational advancement. A recent UK study demonstrated just over half people under 35 had the sense that their opportunities for career progression and learning may have suffered when their main place of work became their home. The recent report called Making Place by Arapana Dublin-based developer iPut raised the idea of street classrooms at the edges of buildings, within public places and within our offices to cross-fertilise knowledge skill sharing. From programs and events that might be run by libraries and cultural institutions targeting workers to commercial buildings showcasing exhibitions or research displays directly onto the street to digital interventions. And there was a really interesting one through iPut with the Royal Hibernian Academy, which created a mixed reality exhibition that virtually placed sculptures around Dublin parks visible through smart devices and prompted people to ask questions and discuss with their neighbours. So a question for you here is how can we really start thinking about fostering urban environments and workplaces where employees and citizens can come together to learn, acquire new skills and grow? The last thing I really want to talk about here today is the spontaneous encounters that we get from work as a social experience. Again, we know from research that it is these encounters that are the #1 reason that people who typically work in office style spaces, it's the main thing they value about their environment. Even where people are seeking more flexible working arrangements, around 85% of people agree there's real social and personal benefit to sharing a physical environment with colleagues. So this pull that we have for convenient, serendipitous human-to-human interaction has seen a conversation that's actually long been held in Melbourne around ideas of, the 20-minute neighbourhood taken up in places like Milan, Barcelona and London, often trialled through tactical urbanism or meanwhile uses. While in Sweden, the 1-minute city is being prototyped, this idea of the hyper-local socialisation being driven by residents and workers, connecting nearby services with kind of flexible kit of parts street design, assisted by things like share scooters, bike parking and IoT connectivity. So if people who socialise benefit from better health, they feel happier, they live longer, and the workplace is a key driver of socialisation. My final question is how can we shift from offers that support social events to workplaces and surrounding environments that are in and of themselves inherently social? So in thinking about the Open Innovation Challenge, I really encourage you to consider how we can shape workplaces and our surrounding environments. In City of Melbourne, those places that so many of us have lived, connect, work and play, to create spaces that positively impact people's sense of comfort and well-being, encourage people to exchange knowledge, skills and debate, and attract people to linger, meet and socialise. Or to borrow a line from the collaboration I recently did with iPut, helping to put the place in workplace and the life in making a living. Thanks, Phil.
That's fantastic, Bree. Lots of inspiration there that we can take from it. And yeah, I was fortunate enough to go to an event at one of your office pre-COVID and was blown away by the park and just the way that it's been designed. So that's really good to see. Thank you. We'll talk a little bit more in the panel and get some questions from everybody. So I'd like to invite our second speaker to talk, who is Dinesh Acharya. Dinesh is the Director of Consulting and Educations at JLL. So we'll just get, Dinesh is almost there, we'll get it on full screen and over to you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Phil. And thank you everyone for having me. Today I wanted to talk about work in the city, and I wanted to talk about some of the real estate trends that we're seeing and some of the implications that we're seeing for the city. So the first trend that I wanted to talk about is hybrid work. And Bree's touched on this. Obviously, we're anticipating we're going to see more people splitting their time between working from home, working from the city. The reality is most of us will sit somewhere in between both. And we're expecting around about 2.4 days per average is the number of days people will be working remotely. And there's two implications of this that I want to talk about. The first is related to density, and the second is related to what we call digital nomads. So for those of you familiar with Jane Jacobs' work, you'll know that density is one of those attributes that creates activation and life on the streets. And one of the impacts that we might anticipate being as a consequence of hybrid work is much more volatile occupancy within buildings and therefore within cities. So for example, within the bookends of a week on Mondays and Fridays, you might see much quieter days in the office and therefore diminished activity on the street. One thing that I'd encourage you all to think about is how we might orchestrate density. For example, JLL at the moment is deploying artificial intelligence within workplaces that automatically understands occupancy trends, can assign seats based on those trends, and can allow organisations to compress their real estate footprint and occupy fewer floors on those days when there's lower occupancy, thereby creating artificial density and bump factor, but also freeing up capacity within the building that has benefits from both a financial and environmental perspective, or that amenity can be repurposed and put to some other use. We believe that these sorts of approaches to our cities can also be very relevant. The other point that I'd like to make is this point around digital nomads. So there is a train of thought that the City of Melbourne is going to lose people to working on the coastal regions or working in the country, but equally, I think we should be looking at how we can attract digital nomads from other locations. For example, in Estonia, they've launched a digital nomad visa. And if you work in one country, they're making it super easy for you to go and work in Estonia and are reducing all of the red tape associated with that. Helsinki is another great example where they're offering city as a service, and they're particularly trying to attract digital talent or tech talent from across the globe. So they're using language that's familiar to that audience. City as a service is obviously a play on software as a service, and some of the key features that they talk about in their city relate to world-class and free education and healthcare and some of the world's happiest people. And for those of you that haven't seen the video, I highly encourage you go out and take a look because it's a brilliant marketing campaign. And in the space of 1 month, they were able to attract 7,000 applicants, so tech talent that wanted to move to Helsinki. So a great example there of how cities are leveraging disruption associated with hybrid work. The next theme I'd like to talk about is humanising places. So as Bree alluded to, people's priorities are shifting, and the traditional approach to work and workplace isn't going to cut it. You know, I don't want to come to the office just to sit amongst a sea of desks. And so some of the trends we're seeing in terms of people's priorities are that people want to participate in meaningful and memorable and symbolic interactions that they simply can't get anywhere else. And we're starting to see a number of our clients really focus on repositioning their asset or their work environment to provide that compelling experience, a mashup of hospitality and well-being and events and food and beverage, sort of things that people can't get working remotely, creating a destination place that people want to be a part of. And just as workplaces are being repositioned, we think there's opportunities to start to reposition cities as a consequence. Again, Bree's touched on this concept of the 15-minute city. Melbourne's obviously adopted a 20-minute neighbourhood. So there'll be approaches such as that will make life more convenient for people. But also there'll be opportunities to think about how we can make creative use of assets and resources on days where there might be lower occupancy. So La Ciclovia in Bogota is a great example of an initiative where 75 miles of roads and highways are given back to the public on Sundays between 7 a.m. and 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. in the afternoon, because on those days, you know, there is less utilisation of those infrastructure, but also it's a great amenity that people can benefit from, and it's proven to be incredibly popular. The last example I want to talk about is this theme of digital first. So we know that tech adoption has accelerated post-COVID and will continue over the coming years. And a couple of great examples of cities adopting a smart approach to city planning. You know, Barcelona, which has adopted a city-wide sensor network which detects all sorts of things, including air quality, air temperature, noise levels, pedestrian traffic, vehicular traffic. And the great thing is they're using this to enhance the user experience. For example, as you walk the city streets, the lighting will adjust based on pedestrian traffic. And as the pedestrian traffic drops off, the lighting lux level also drops off. This has also been a great way that the city has been able to save money financially and also to reduce its environmental impact. The other thing that I'd mention about Barcelona, which is really great and unique, is that they're also using a technology to allow participatory design in the city. So they've adopted a platform called Decidem, which means we decide, and the people of Barcelona are able to vote on initiatives that the government acts upon. And there's 70% conversion rate of the things that are important to people being enacted by government. A really great example there. And then the last example here is of virtual Singapore. So some of you may be familiar with the concept of digital twins, which is effectively an aggregated data model that allows you to visualize all sorts of data and information. And it's being applied here in Australia as well. So in Melbourne, in Fisherman's Bend, digital twin is being used, also in New South Wales. And the interesting thing here is not only being able to understand different and disparate data sources, but being able to understand data in context. So one thing I'd encourage you all to do is to think about not just isolated bits of data, but how it connects as a whole. And again, Singapore is really leading by example there. So I will leave it at that. Thank you.
That's great, Dinesh. Lots of really good examples there. As a former employee of Nokia, it is quite funny. I've seen the campaigns about being the happiest place on earth, and they're really making the most of that. So it is very good in the summer. So that's great to see. If you could just stop sharing your screen, that would be brilliant. And we'll move to our third speaker, who is Joe Maxwell. And Joe is the president of the Docklands Chamber of Commerce, which also is the home, Docklands is the home of Arup, actually, where Bree office is. So Joe, that's great. We can see your screens perfectly. If you want to come off mute, you're ready to go.
Okay, sorry about that. And yes, I'd like to thank Bree for showcasing one of our beautiful complexes down here in Docklands. That's in the new Melbourne Quarter area that their office is, and that's got lots of growth to go ahead as well. So look, for us here in Docklands, we're actually living and suffering and working through it. So we have a journey to recovery for Docklands. It's certainly not an easy recovery plan that we've got going. Oh, now my screen doesn't want to play. Right, sorry, I've now got my screens working. So our journey's been a long one, and we've actually started a journey to recovery since and prior to COVID-19. We actually had our first major impact back in August 2019 when Central Pier was closed on such short notice, and I'm sure most of you will have seen the media around that. Central Pier used to bring 1 million visitors to Docklands on an annual basis, and that stopped at 7 p.m. on the 28th of August. And we had some major issues in there. Then we followed up very quickly for all our traders there with New Year's Eve being virtually cancelled. Fireworks were cancelled, so the crowd didn't come in. Australia Day again was cancelled due to the bushfires. And for us down here, we didn't suffer anywhere near like our regional friends through the bushfires and the tragedies that unfolded through that. However, it did have a lasting effect here for us here in Docklands. 23rd of March 2020, COVID lockdown 1 started. I've now been working from home for over 12 months, and my staff still tend to work from home and don't want to come into the city. We've had things cancelled multiple times. The Sri Lankan 3-day festival, which was going to be a great one for Docklands, Run for the Kids, which was going to be its second year in there, Firelight, which is a 3-day festival put on by the City of Melbourne, and then the list continued to grow and grow. So we've had lots of activations down here cancelled, as have lots of other precincts in the City of Melbourne. However, for Docklands, it's been going for that little bit longer and hurt us quite severely. So those impacts have come through in major areas. the reduction of 1 million visitors to Docklands from Central Pier. And I'm sure that everybody that's in this group, if you've been to a wedding or a Christmas function or training courses, all sorts of things that Central Pier have held over the years, they've had a number of different venues and sizes of venues. Virgin Fashion Week used to come down here to Docklands. We've got a very heavy charter boat industry that worked off Central Pier. And when Central Pier closed, it actually impacted our charter vessels as well, because people thought they wouldn't be able to trade as well. So that came into it. The lockdowns, the curfews, the 5 kilometre radius of travel, and then the Ring of Steel. So here in Docklands, we have 100,000 workers move through our precinct on a daily basis. So if you take 100,000 people out of a precinct where they come in and they go to the dentist in their lunch break, they go and have their eyes checked, they take their dry cleaning in, snip in and have a haircut at one of our many hairdressers, go to the chemist, get their scripts, all those things ceased. So not only did our hospitality area and things like that suffer, it actually hit the small service industries as well. So at that point in time, we had in excess of 1,000 vacant apartments here in Docklands. And I do believe that rentals in Docklands for rental apartments have been impacted. We have no tourists coming in. We have no fly-in, fly-out workers that are working on contracts within the banks and things like that. Our student population has diminished. So you can get some great apartments down here in Docklands for a lot less in rent at the moment. Although today I did check up on that figure, and we're sitting currently between 800 and 900 vacant apartments. So it is improving slightly in there. The precinct actually became a ghost town. So sitting in Docklands all through COVID, you could almost fire balloons down the street and nobody would collect them because there was no one there to grab them as they flew away. Currently, we're sitting at 47% of our businesses, retail sites are vacant. So in the last week here in Burke Street, between the library at the dock and Wurundjeri Way, there are 6 businesses that have closed, and that's in 1 week. So 6 out of a very small 4-block area is absolutely a huge impact into our precinct. And we do believe that there's more to come. So we are very, very sad down here. So any innovative ideas, we're certainly keen to see. So from a Chamber of Commerce perspective, so the Docklands Chamber of Commerce is actually sponsored by the City of Melbourne, and we're now into year, I think it's about year 14 or 15 of a precinct program that's sponsored by the City of Melbourne. And our aim and our focus is to support the members, and we needed to ramp that up. So we've increased our interactions. We've been walking the street, talking to our business owners. They've had many crying on our shoulders. I have to say that my volunteer role as president of the Docklands Chamber doesn't pay me enough to listen to some of the sad tales that I hear from the traders. However, it's very important to support those traders that really don't know where to go. Increased information.
A couple of minutes left, Joe.
Sorry. Increased information, to our EDMs and make sure that they know what's going on. Assistance for our businesses to pivot, planning for how the DCC can support a recovery program. So on the 28th of April, we presented to the City of Melbourne and Development Victoria a great initiative, and it's called Docklands Dollars. So it's taken us nearly 12 months, and we're about to launch this in a couple of weeks on the 29th of March, and it's actually stay, eat, play and redeem. Now you guys are all actually seeing this before anybody else in the public. We haven't released it. We're about to launch it to our members, and it's an opportunity based on people staying in Docklands for 2 nights, getting redemption on accommodation, but being able to pick any one of over 400 different activities, restaurants, service industry that they can redeem funds on those things. So the dollars stay in Docklands. You can redeem up to $210. There's a number of different things, and I know that this is being recorded, so you can have a greater look at this further down the track. The logistics, the businesses don't have to do anything. It'll all be managed by the Chamber of Commerce, and people will register and redeem from us, and we'll refund money within 24 hours to people after they've lodged their redemption, but they have to stay in Docklands to get those monies. The funding's been provided to us from the City of Melbourne with the assistance of the State Government of Victoria and under their package of funds that are coming through, and Development Victoria here in Melbourne as well. And where we are today, we've got our funding approval. Our website's currently under construction and we're UATing it at the moment. We're loading all our businesses. We have a launch to our members where they actually get to see all this artwork on Wednesday morning. So you're all seeing it nice and early, and it will be launched to the public on the 29th of March. These are just some of the graphics that we've been using, and this has been created and designed by one of our own members here in Docklands, MoWorks, who do a great job, and they're out there very much in the creative. As I said, supported by the City of Melbourne, the Chamber of Commerce and the Development Victoria. These graphics you'll see out and about over the next 4 to 6 months, and we're looking for a slow burn. So not everybody in the first month. Let's spread it out over the school holidays and then into the winter months and as the footy takes on. The next step for us is we've got a lot of work. We believe we've got about 500 man hours to get this program up and going and managed all the way through, and we go through from there. And the future for the Docklands Chamber of Commerce is that we'll actually continue to support all our businesses. We're also developing 6 30-second videos showcasing This Is My Docklands. We filmed the water version of that on Friday afternoon, a perfect day for it. We'll be supporting increased activation and visitation to Docklands. So any ideas you've got, please bring it on. We've got 7 kilometres of waterfront. Docklands, Victoria Harbour in Docklands is actually the jewel in the crown. And that's us here in Docklands. But that's the pain we're feeling. And that's where we need you guys with your innovation ideas and support to help bring us back.
Wow, thanks, Jo. It's pretty sobering, but that's why we're all here, to try and do everything we can. And that looks like a fantastic campaign and initiative and something to really look forward to. So thanks for sharing that. If you could just unshare your screen, please. That's brilliant. Before we go to the last one, if there was ever a case of like, wow, we really all need to try and help and work out how we can do it, there's one great example there. Just to say, one question that came through, the closed captions, the live closed captions, if you want to remove them, there's a live transcript button at the bottom, or you can physically get your arrow, and I think you can move it from left and right if it's in the way at all. The other thing, as we just go to the last speaker, which is Kai Lofgren, who is the head of strategy at Small Giants Academy. Now's the time to start getting your questions in to our speakers, or thoughts or ideas or inspiration. So put whatever you're thinking about on the chat. We want to hear from as many people as possible. Until then, Kai, over to you. Do you want to go through your slides?
Thanks, Phil, and thanks to Jo and the other speakers. It's wonderful to hear the examples. Can I just get a wave that you can see that screen and hear me okay? Yep, excellent. Just always good to check. Now, I thought I might go a little bit philosophical. So we've gone from a lot of the practical examples, which I loved. So I might take us in a slightly different direction, a different tone. So forgive me if you get altitude sickness over the next few minutes, but bear with me, and hopefully it provides some interesting flavour. I would love to talk a little bit about the moment that we're in, the system that we're currently sitting within, what I think is our major work at a time like this, and then show that there are some examples of people already working in this way that can be really inspiring, and try and wrap that up with some provocations around what I mean by innovation towards the next economy. I guess the big one for me, and I keep coming back to this article that many people might have seen at the height of the pandemic last year. The wonderful writer Arundhati Roy wrote a piece called "The Pandemic is a Portal" in the Financial Times. It got shared widely. And I guess why I keep coming back to this is that many people talk about this moment as one where there is an opportunity for renewal, which I find quite hard to grapple with because the hardship is so real. Exactly what you just described, Jo, that the short-term pain is severe. So I prefer the analogy that Arundhati Roy used here, which is to talk about the pandemic as a gateway between one world, which was pre-COVID, and another world, which is coming after. And we can choose, as Arundhati Roy states, we can take everything with us from the old and build back to where we were. We can take, I mean, she uses a pretty fantastic turn of phrase, you can take the carcasses of prejudice and hatred, our data bank and our dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies. We can bring all of that with us, or we can choose to go for something different, to imagine another world, and most importantly, to really fight for it. So I guess what I'm asking, and from an innovation perspective, is think about what you're taking with you from the old world pre-COVID into the new. Be really conscious about what you're taking with you with your ideas that you put forward. The next thing I just wanted to note is that it's important to be conscious and self-aware of the system that we're in and that we have been in. And many people talk about this as capitalism, and I think we all have to agree. This is a system that economically has captured the whole world. And it's had an incredibly positive benefit for so many people for so long. It's lifted so many people out of poverty. It's created jobs and livelihoods. It's been an extraordinary force for good in many, many ways. But we also can't deny that it's caused incredible hardship, primarily amongst the climate emergency, but also thinking about things like social inequality and financial inequality. And we have to acknowledge that these forces are also here to stay. And I guess what I wanted to focus on here again is that it's really hard to imagine what might come next. But as the wonderful writer Ursula Le Guin says here, although the power can seem inescapable of the system that we're currently in, so did the divine power of kings. And any human power that we're in can be changed by the force of human beings. So I just want to encourage you again, just to be conscious of the current system and think how we can move beyond it. And I want to provide a bit of advice about how we might be able to think about it in that way. The first thing we can do, I think, is be more conscious about the assumptions that underpin the system that we're currently in. And I want to give you a few examples, but please use this as a provocation. When you're thinking about your ideas for this project, what assumptions in the system are you challenging? And I'll give you some ideas. The first one is that our system tells us that human beings are separate from and in control of the natural world. Now, it's a ridiculous statement when you see it in black and white. Quite clearly, we are part of nature. We're not separate from it. And quite clearly, with the results of something like climate change, we're certainly not in control of the natural world. And yet our system teaches us that we can be extractive with our natural environment, and that's the way oftentimes for economic progress. So that's an assumption that I think we have to move beyond as a system. The second one is one that's come up so monumentally over the last few weeks, which is the feminine is devalued and fundamentally dismissed in our economic system. Now, this is obviously the case with gender-based violence and sexualized violence, but it's also the case in really nuanced ways in how we value leadership, how we value managing teams, how we organize ourselves as a society. So again, it's an assumption in our system that we have to try and move beyond. A couple more. The third one, this is really interesting in terms of building innovative ideas. We often assume in our system that competition is the only legitimate organizing principle for our activities. Now, again, you see it in black and white, and immediately I'm sure you can all think of examples where that's not the case. Clearly, when we have natural disasters like we have in New South Wales at the moment, this is not the organizing principle. We all put our, all of our work aside and we get together and we organize ourselves to try and help one another. We have an altruistic communitarian way of being that sits alongside the more competitive, self-interested selves that we also all have. And just bear that in mind again. And the final one, and this is a ripper for our current system, growth equals success. So both at an organizational level, we believe profit is the only measure of success or the most fundamental measure of success. And as a nation state, as countries, we believe GDP growth is the only measure of success. And again, I'm listing these and maybe they seem really obvious to you, but I'd encourage you when you're going through this ideation process, this innovation process, write down the assumptions in the current system that you're seeking to challenge, and let's try and move beyond them as we come out of this moment. So the fundamental work that I believe we need to do is redefine success as individuals, as organizations, and in this case, as a city. And this again is not new. You know, Bobby Kennedy on the campaign trail in '68, 52 years ago, was talking about the idea that GDP is a terrible measure of success for society. It doesn't measure the things that are actually important, the things that we value as individuals. And it also measures things that are terrible, that contribute negatively, and yet we see them as contributing to GDP growth. So again, this is not new, this is not necessarily radical things that I'm saying, but we need to remind ourselves of these realities. And the way we can do that is look at some examples. So many of you would have come across the gross national happiness work in Bhutan. A number of years ago, I think a couple of decades ago, the king declared that gross national happiness is way more important than gross domestic product for the country. And they had experts from all over the world fly in, and they held these massive workshops from Nobel Prize winning economists and lots of individuals getting together to define what this means. And now every bit of policy in Bhutan goes through this filter to define whether it contributes to GNH as well as GDP. Another example that many would have been familiar with is donut economics. And this is a simple model coming out of by a woman called Kate Raworth out of the UK, where she says the goal for society, and in this case, the goal for our city, needs to be that we need to stay within the ecological ceiling, and we need to lift ourselves above a social baseline. And only then can we create this safe space for humanity. So it's a wonderful example again, and we've been using that to do a whole bunch of work here in Melbourne. Together with the City of Melbourne, Small Giants and a number of partners has been working on this Regen Melbourne project, where we've been convening community around lots of questions that come up when we use the donut lens. And I'd encourage you, if you want to get involved in these really expansive conversations about the future of our city, jump onto regen.melbourne and join that conversation as well. So finally, I guess the questions that I'm asking you to think about in this process is, are you innovating? Is your project part of an old economy pre-COVID, or is it part of the next economy that comes after? And if so, what assumptions are you challenging in your work? What are the aspects of your work that really come up against the assumptions in our old economy, and how does it move beyond them? And fundamental from that is how are we redefining success in all of these initiatives. Finally, we have huge challenges as a city around climate, around inequality, around lots of issues. And I'm just going to say, once you've come up with your idea, step back from it and ask yourself, are you being ambitious enough? Are we meeting this moment with enough ambition as a city? Thanks, Phil.
Wow, sounds sensational, Kai. Lots of good things within that. So thank you so much for sharing. I think all four panelists, we're just going to do a couple of things beforehand. I've really started to get our brains ticking over now in terms of what we can do. So as we move into the panel session, yeah, I think Emma just said my brain's something, so is mine. I took lots of notes myself then, but looking at what Bree talked about what the challenges are, the trends in terms of how we can look at things like greening, and I think the phrase healthy buildings and urban spaces was something that you brought up. And then with Dinesh building on that in terms of some of the great examples like what's happening with Estonia, the city as a service in Helsinki, and the great works happening in Bogota and Barcelona. Then Joe gave us that reality check about what's happening within Docklands and what needs to be done there, but also the way to look forward in terms of the campaign on Stay, Eat, Play and Redeem, and how important that can be. And then last but not least, from Kai, where this idea of the old economy or the next economy and looking at those assumptions. And actually, there was an event the City of Melbourne did, which we were involved in for inner city business support, where Gilbert Rochecout from Village Well spoke. And he actually talked with all of this about the City of Melbourne is like a string of pearls. It all just needs to be connected as you move from one area to the other. So thinking about that as well as, like what assumptions have you placed there and how can we start to reimagine the city in ways that we hadn't really thought of before. So like you say, it's like that North Star idea, Kai, of like, let's just without constraint think about where do we want to go and how much luggage we want to take with us. So fantastic. Thanks, everybody. We're going to move into a panel discussion very shortly while you have a think about some questions. So everybody in the chat, please start to bring your questions through and the team are going to start to collect them, and whether they're specifically for the panel or generally about the next few weeks and what's coming up, then it doesn't matter. Whatever you want to ask, we're here for you. While you're thinking about those questions, I just wanted to come and share just a couple of videos where we hear international perspectives of the COVID-19 impact and recovery from Indonesia and Vietnam, both of whom are partners for the Open Innovation Competition. So the first video is going to come from Bandung in Indonesia, who've had a long-term partnership with the city and also with the Open Innovation Competition. So I'll just look to get this up and running. Check my things are working well, and I'll just get it back to the beginning. Hopefully you can see this video, and I'll start to press play.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Saya Yayan Ahmad Bizaljana, Kepala Dinas Komunikasi dan Informatika Kota Bandung, sekaligus Koordinator Bidang Humas Gugus Tugas COVID-19. Menyampaikan beberapa pesan terkait dampak yang terjadi akibat pandemi COVID-19 di Kota Bandung selama kurang lebih 1 tahun terakhir ini. Kota Bandung sebagai kota jasa, perdagangan, dan pariwisata amat terpukul dengan terjadinya pandemi ini, sama halnya dengan kota-kota yang lainnya. Secara sosial, aktivitas pelayanan publik terganggu, aktivitas produksi di industri terhenti hingga tutupnya pusat-pusat perdagangan. Di sisi lain, secara ekonomi, adanya penurunan pendapatan asli daerah, melemahnya daya beli masyarakat, terjadi pemutusan hubungan kerja hingga meningkatnya masyarakat miskin. Menurut Badan Pusat Statistik atau BPS, tercatat ada kenaikan 3% atau 42.014 pengangguran baru di Kota Bandung akibat pandemi COVID-19 ini. Oleh karena itu, jajaran pemerintah Kota Bandung dan seluruh pemangku kepentingan sudah menyiapkan beberapa strategi, mencakup 1. Pelatihan, 2. Pemulihan ekonomi, dan 3. Peningkatan investasi.
Perkenalkan, nama saya Erik Muhammad Atori, Asisten Perekonomian dan Pembangunan Setda Kota Bandung, yang dalam hal ini sekaligus sebagai Ketua Pelaksana Harian Satgas Pemulihan Ekonomi tingkat Kota Bandung. Pada kesempatan saat ini, saya ingin menyampaikan beberapa hal yang menjadi potensi di Kota Bandung ini sebagai salah satu upaya dalam rangka pemulihan perekonomian di Kota Bandung. Kami di Kota Bandung ini memiliki masyarakat yang sangat kreatif dan inovatif, yang saat ini juga sangat peduli terhadap perkembangan digital. Di samping itu, kami pun memiliki masyarakat yang sangat senang bersilaturahmi, senang bergotong royong, dan senang berkumpul. Selain tentu saja di era pandemi ini, kita pun menjadikan peluang untuk lebih memperkenalkan program-program digital dan e-commerce. Pada kesempatan ini pun kami berharap hubungan kerjasama yang sudah baik dengan antara Kota Bandung dan Kota Melbourne bisa terus ditingkatkan, termasuk kita bisa sharing produk-produk Kota Bandung yang bisa diterima oleh masyarakat di Kota Melbourne, sehingga hubungan kerjasama kita baik ekonomi, seni dan budaya serta pendidikan bisa terus ditingkatkan dan dikembangkan.
Saya kira demikian, semoga strategi tersebut dapat mendongkrak ekonomi di Kota Bandung, sehingga masyarakat dapat kembali produktif dan berdaya seperti sedia kala. Demikian, terima kasih.
So wow, has that been an impact as well with 42,000 people losing their job and becoming unemployed? So again, but this is a great opportunity to actually be able to help the people of Bandung as well. The last video that I just wanted to share with you is actually from our friends in Vietnam, who also would like to tell their story. Just bear with me 1 second. Hopefully this one will also work swimmingly.
My name is Loan Dương. I'm the Director of Strategy and External Relations for IMIT in Vietnam. IMIT Vietnam is pleased to be partnering of the CD Melbourne Open Innovation Competition 2021 here in Vietnam. And as you may know, that cities all around the world have been severely impacted by COVID-19 in different ways, even though Vietnam and Australia stand out to be the best in managing or putting COVID-19 pandemic under control. And we understand that this is a recovering period for both country, both nation, and therefore innovation is a core to this recovery journey. This open innovation competition therefore serves as a great opportunity to generate ideas that hopefully can apply in the two nations, but also across the Asia Pacific region. I understand that this is also serve as an opportunity to build and leverage international partnership to strengthen the innovation ecosystem and build the networks and market opportunity of growth. Ho Chi Minh City, where IMIT Vietnam has a very beautiful Saigon South campus, actually experienced the challenges severely in the service sector as a result of COVID-19, because the city is known grow significantly in these service areas over the last 5 years. But now it's being impacted heavily. And it changed entirely the ways that we do our work and the way we live. And now in Vietnam, everyone talking about living our life with new normals after the COVID-19. Building the resilience of our two cities is key to proofing against future pandemics or global shocks, such as the COVID-19, even though we don't hope that would happen again. But we're excited to be hosting this competition in Vietnam, where activators would be able to deliver workshops and mentoring to support students and startups in the city to bring up the new solution to address the challenges across the region, and particularly in Vietnam and Australia. How this is important to IMIT to strengthen our relationship. For your information, in January, IMIT is the first university in Ho Chi Minh City that having activate the Memorandum of Understanding with the city to set out the 5-year partnership with the city to support the city in many areas. And one of the key areas is support the city in innovation and innovation ecosystem. I do hope that this will provide a platform, this competition will provide a platform for entrepreneurs to build and scale ideas and to make our cities, Ho Chi Minh City and Melbourne and many other cities in the region, be a better places to connect, work together, play together, and understand much more. Thank you.
Okay, so again, it's great to have RMT University in Vietnam involved in this as well. Similar challenges around things, messages we hear a lot on new normals and also building resilience. So I think everybody's having this very similar challenges at the moment. So on that note, what we'll do, that's all the videos played and everything else. So the good news is as of today, the competition is now open. And we are going to just show you what happens next before we get a chance to have a chat with everybody. So just bear with me a second. So these are the competition milestones. And I know that there was quite a number of questions around the process. So by all means, Emma Forster, if you want to build on anything I'm saying here to help with the questions, that's absolutely fine. But in short, today this launch event marks the competition open. So we're ready to go. The starting gun has gone off and it's all moving forward from there. There's over these coming weeks, there is a number of different Q&A online, virtual one-to-one sessions and a range of mentors and experts that are available running up to the 30th of April. So during this time as well, you'll have access to all the City of Melbourne open data. And then building on that, from the 26th to the 30th of April, as part of Melbourne Knowledge Week, another fantastic initiative by the City of Melbourne, we have this wonderful program brought to you by the City of Melbourne, which is a rapid open innovation sprint with RMIT to help structure and finalize your ideas before competition arises. Entries close on the 2nd of May. So from my understanding, there are certain numbers who are available for that, and I'm sure Emma can build on that. I can see she's just put the link in the chat. Then once the competition closes, there'll be a judging assessment time, and then there'll be pitch training for the finalists, like one-to-one, where the actual pitch event and the winners will be announced in mid to late June, and the prize pathway programs will start to take place in July. For everybody who's part of this at the beginning, there's also pitch training that we've been working on in collaboration, an online program that will be available to anybody to help make sure that they can put in their best entry possible. And that'll be on the website that's launched as well, and more details of how you can register, but that's available to all. There was another program like that last year, which a lot of people found really useful. So that's the thing on the competition. What I wanted to do now, if it's okay, is just to actually go back to the speakers, just get a few more questions and build on what's actually been said up till now. And then, as I say, if there's any questions that have come through to Megan or Emma, we can ask them as well. So, you know, there was so much information there that was that came from all the speakers, and thank you again for giving it your time and explaining that. Maybe just generally across the board, when you actually hear everybody else's, you know, like, what do you see is probably the key problem areas to be able to solve this holistic challenge for Melbourne's recovery? Where do you see potentially like the roadblocks to make this happen? Anybody wish to answer that?
My first thought is just COVID uncertainty for businesses. Changes, no one really knows what's going to happen in the future. I think it's a huge challenge.
Yeah, I agree, Trevor. Anybody from the panel? Kai, have you got a thought on that? Go ahead, and I saw Joe raise the hand as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to make a response there.
Maybe I'll say it. Sorry, Joe, you go first. I'll jump in after you.
Okay, no worries.
Cool.
From a precinct that's desperate to reactivate, the City of Melbourne have endeavoured to support everybody as best as they can. The problem that we have is the unsurety of, can things go ahead? The COVID plan safes are very high maintenance. We did one for our Valentine's Day market, and the COVID plan was 95 pages of forms to fill in to get state government to approve it. Yes, we have to be safe, but we need to start thinking about, we need to live with this virus. It's not going to go away. We're going to have to continue on. From a business perspective, they need surety that we're not going to get locked down again. And that's the hard part. And getting people, the FOMO campaign that's running at the moment is great, and people are scared of coming back into the city. We need something unique and dynamic to draw people back into the city, to give them their love. They love all the things that we've always had, but we need something new and something brilliant to bring them back into, not just the CBD area, but into Carlton, into the Yarra's Edge area and into Docklands, North Melbourne, Kensington, the whole kit and caboodle in there. So it's really getting something unique up and getting the bureaucracy out of the way in some ways.
That's great. Kai, do you want to answer that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there are lots of technical barriers here, and many of them I think are sort of patently obvious about the uncertainty and the sort of attention deficit that people have right now, because people are struggling to make their own lives work in this context. And then I think there's a really, particularly in this context, if we're talking about entrepreneurial endeavor and people who are in a privileged position where they can think about coming up with new ideas, which I think we're all in, I think there's a more of a psychological challenge, which is doing that in the context of uncertainty and to try and change a system when we are ourselves benefiting from it. So these are huge sort of psychological and philosophical challenges that we have to grapple with as entrepreneurs. And maybe the best answer when we get in those positions is poetry. I'm sure you'll all agree. So I'm going to put a little poem in the chat from a wonderful American farmer and poet, Wendell Berry. It's very short. I'm not going to read it. You can read it yourselves. But basically, it's about this idea that when it's hard, when our work feels incredibly difficult, complex, impossible, uncertain, that's when we're doing the real work. That's what we're here to do. So embrace that feeling of uncertainty, embrace the difficulty of this. It should be hard. If it comes easily, then we haven't thought about it hard enough.
That's great. Thank you. I agree. Just to say, it's nice that there's some people out there looking for people to collaborate who want to build tech solutions. So also in the chat, if you're looking for a friend who you want to actually work with on this, then that's a great opportunity. Dinesh, I'm going to ask you a question. Based on your role at JLL, what do you feel, what's the role that the education sector can play in reactivating our city?
Yeah, thanks, Phil. And I think through the presentations today, we talked about this idea of learning and collective learning as a critical element for all organisations. And we work with clients across corporate, education and government. And one of the things that I think a lot of organisations are grappling with is how do they upskill their people in line with the future of work? And I think many of them struggle with it. And at the same time, we've got educational institutions, and Melbourne's a great city for education, who I believe have the capability to help those industries and partners evolve their ways of thinking. And so we've seen some really interesting examples of corporates and education coming together to think about new ways of delivering services and learning. In Parramatta, for example, Western Sydney University cohabits space with PwC, and as part of that arrangement, they've established an MOU to deliver all sorts of joint programs. The university can benefit from venture capital that PwC can provide, and they can provide work-integrated learning, leadership, and staff from PwC can benefit from some of the training programs. Blacktown City Council is going to be cohabiting space with Australian Catholic University, and Blacktown has been a precinct that struggled in terms of activation and prospects for people in the area. So this is going to be a really great opportunity to create some synergies around shared functions like libraries, but also to bring a critical mass of people back to the city centre. And so it's just on that point there that I'd just like to say, maybe there's an opportunity in the absence of international borders opening, which means we don't have tourists, we don't have international students, we don't have that migration that Melbourne benefits from. Maybe there's ways to think about, how we can look at incentivising some of these larger occupiers of space to take presence in the city. Before COVID, there was a trend to education institutions occupying the city. And, I think some of those joined up programs can help us bring a critical mass of people into the city centre, but can also help us continue to learn and develop and learn from one another.
Yeah, that's great. Really interesting. Thank you. Bree, I was going to ask a question. Obviously, in your role as research for Australia, you've obviously got a lot of stuff that's generated by the company, but also I was thinking, for the teams, I'm sure they'd all love to have you on their team because of the wealth of knowledge in your brain. I don't know if we can clone you, if anyone could fix that. But I was just thinking, what are good resources, for people to do an environmental scan or to look at these things or to find those great examples that both you and Dinesh have actually spoken about. I was just thinking if there's any places that people could maybe go to so that they can build a bit more proof points to their ideas.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and there's a whole lot of evidence that started coming out recently, and it's been an interesting conversation, I think, over the last year or so, because initially it was a lot of kind of thoughts and propositions, but we're now starting to really get some data and some evidence that are helping us to understand the direction that things are moving in, whether that's a direction that we want to continue in or steer away from. And to Kai's point, there's also a lot of the data that's starting to come out that is suggesting to us that perhaps just going back to the way that we were before is not necessarily an ideal approach. So in terms of really useful resources, there are, of course, things like the City of Melbourne's open data, which has been put up, but a large number of cities now have this. So, for example, Barcelona, as we were talking about earlier, has a really great city data portal, and that's translatable. You can also look to cities like Copenhagen, which also will provide you with their data, and a lot of really great case studies about how they've been operating over the last year or so, what's been tried, what hasn't. There's also a lot of really good research that's come out recently around the kind of temporary or meanwhile uses, particularly looking at how you can not just move through regulatory barriers, but how we can start considering what this looks like in terms of evaluating and understanding the impact of these over time. And I'll put some of these up in the sidebar for you. There's also just, there's been a lot of great conversation coming out in blogs like The Atlantic and City Lab, The Conversation, all of which are starting to pull together some really useful resources that are coming out both from academic sources and from a wider range of journalism. And I'll share some in the sidebar.
Oh, that's brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. And I believe that there are some really good links within the website as well that's being put in by the City of Melbourne. So trying to give everybody as many resources as they can. Well, to the people in the audience, has anyone got any questions, either for any of the panel or for the City of Melbourne at all? I'd love to open it to the floor if there's anything you need to know.
I think there was one question in there, or a couple of folks were interested to find out about how you can, how you can apply, but then perhaps find a team. And I would encourage you, obviously today is a really good opportunity, but we don't have much more time left in the session. But we do have our mentors and experts page on the competition platform, the website. So if there's anyone on that page, there's about 20 mentors and experts that you think might tap into an industry or a network that you are interested in, please by all means reach out. There's also a generic Q&A forum platform where you can ask a question and we can help allocate the best expert or find the answer for you to help you along. The next best way, I think, to come along and meet more people would be at the Melbourne Knowledge Week. The whole week itself is a fantastic week for those who haven't been before, but there is this particular program that we're running with RMIT Activator that's specific to the Open Innovation Challenge this year. So I've put that in the chat as well, but it's essentially a 4-day sprint where you can drop in, drop out, you can meet people, you can do it virtually or in person. So that's probably another great opportunity to find people that you'd like to engage with on your submission. Welcome to jump off mute as well if I'm missing any, and Megan as well, if you want to answer any or add to the answers, go for it.
Yeah, I just saw a question in the chat around the stage at which you need to be at with your idea. This year, we've actually got 3 different streams. So if you've just an early idea or concept, we've got a stream for that. If you've got slightly more developed in an early prototype stage, maybe tested it a few times, or if you've already got it, third one is if you've already got it available on the market. So we've got a couple of different streams. So just if you want to jump on the website and have a look, and the question was, how far do you need to be with your technical aspects? There's essentially 5 judging criteria. So we're looking for, as much data or evidence you have to back up your idea or your solution, but there's certainly scope for people that have just got an idea that's not, fully fledged yet. Absolutely welcome to submit that through as well.
I think to elaborate on Megan's point there, each different prize or each different category has a different prize pathway. So say you are at an early stage with your idea, part of the prize pool for that stream is that you might get access into an early stage startup incubator or accelerator program. We've luckily partnered with RMIT Launch Hub and also University of Melbourne's Melbourne Accelerator Program Velocity, as well as the SBE Female Founders Program as well. So there's a number of sort of opportunities for you to really. Open innovation is about unearthing all of the great ideas at whatever stage they might be and helping them get to that next level. So if it's really early through to something that's already available, or it might be an innovation on something that's already on the market, we're trying to look at ways in which we can support you either way. So I think hopefully, it's a great opportunity. You can submit on your own, of course, but you can as well look for to pull together a team as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, and as I say, for everybody, whatever stage you are, there is a pitch training program that's available. So you can actually go through and have a think about your unique value proposition of your team or your idea, and looking at what the problem is and how big it is and how you're going to solve it. So there's a methodology there to help everybody and try and help create an even playing field, regardless of whether you're at that beginning idea or you're ready to scale and you've got something existing. But it's fair to say there's heaps of information on the website, which is great. So it's certainly worth having a really good look at that.
I would say as well, Phil, I don't know if you or someone from the team can drop into the chat the link to your pitch training, the online platform that you've got as well, because that would be really useful for people trying to articulate their idea and trying to, get it to a point where they feel comfortable submitting to the competition. So I don't know, we can pop, there we go. Thanks, Em. That's dropped into the chat now, so feel free to have a look at that.
That's fantastic. Just having a quick look down the rest of the chat because we're almost there, I think. I've got one more slide just to, as we said, to everybody, like just in terms of next steps, this website at the bottom, this is where you've got to go. And there's absolutely heaps of information out there. And as we say, there's quite a bit of time to actually get your idea together, to work with people, to look at the Melbourne Knowledge Week and the opportunity to do the sprint, to work with the mentors, It really is, I genuinely mean, it's such a great competition, because this is your chance, even if you are new at this, to have a go. That idea in the bath that you've never quite got to yet, this is your chance to have a look at it and to work with other like-minded souls and clever people to make the most of this opportunity. So unless there's anything else from yourself, Em, or from Megan, I reckon that is just about perfect timing.
I think so. Yeah, I think yeah, it's a lot of info there. So I would say take some time to digest it all. We are available through the Mentors and Experts platform, or you can email myself or Megan directly. I guess Megan's probably more of an expert around the international connections and connecting into Bandung, Indonesia, and Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. And of course, I'm available to talk to anything around the competition. And we really hope you can all get involved. Thank you, Michael, from the City of Melbourne Open Data team, popping your email in there. That's super helpful. And yeah, please feel free to connect after this, get on LinkedIn. I always find that's a good one for networking and finding people to help you get an idea off the ground. But I would just want to extend a huge thanks to all of our panelists and speakers who have taken their time today, and to yourself, Phil, and the team from 25/8 for doing an amazing job. Megan, did you have anything else you wanted to say from the City of Melbourne?
No, I just wanted to say on that website, you'll find some extra links to some of the support that we've got available. We really do want to help people, flesh out their ideas and be connected. So do reach out if you've got any further questions. And thanks everyone for taking the time to join us today. And thanks.
That's fabulous. Thanks, Megan. Well, look, thanks again to Dinesh and Kai and Bree and Joe for sharing their knowledge and wisdom. Thank you to you, the audience, for being so interactive and collaborative on the chat, and really looking forward to getting to know as many of you as possible over the next few weeks as the competition kicks off, and we look forward to an exciting pitch event when it comes in June. So as always, if you need help, there's plenty of resources there. There's contact details for everybody, and this recording as well will be put on the site once it's done. So if you've got people who you think you're going to collaborate or need to see it, then it will be available for everybody to have another look. So I reckon that's it. It's 5:30. Time to call it today for some, maybe not for everyone. But anyway, enjoy your evening. Thanks again for everybody for joining, and looking forward to catching up in the coming weeks. Bye for now. Thanks all. Good to see you. Get out there and come up with ideas. Yes. Good. Do it. Fabulous.